In this segment, let's put into practice what we've been learning about intervals so far and see, does this really help us with our reading? What I'd like to start with is I'd like to start with a couple of landmark notes. And the first one that we're going to begin with is in the treble clef. And the treble clef is this top clef. It's also called the G clef. This looks kind of like a G. And the interesting thing about this symbol is that this little circle wraps right around a special line, and that's called the G line. So treble clef or G clef, and if you can remember that second line up is the G, and to correspond on the piano, let's see, let me move this back just a little bit. Here's middle C, and it is the G above middle C. Okay, so I'm going to put a note here, and then we're just going to place a few intervals on here and see if we can figure out how to read that. So we're starting with G, and I'm going to go up a second, down a third, and down a second. What you're going to find here is that if you know this G, you don't actually have to know these three notes to be able to read this little pattern. Of course, it's a great idea to memorize all the names of the lines and spaces, but learning them by intervals is just another tool in your toolbox, and hopefully this will be a helpful tool. So if we start with the G above middle C, we're right here, and if we go up a second to right there, it would look like that on the piano. We're going to go down a third because it's a space to a space, and then we're going to go down a second because it's a space to a line. Okay, pretty good so far. This is a great place for me to reiterate one of the difficult things about reading on the piano, and that is that we read on the staff from left to right, just the way we read a book. And if we go up on the staff this direction, we will also go up on the keyboard. So for example, these three notes are seconds, and each note gets progressively higher. All right, I'm going to leave this one right here, and we now have a descending fifth. We're still going to read left to right, but the tricky thing on the keyboard is that we're going to be playing a lower note. This is a higher note than this one. This is a lower note than this one. So you're reading left to right, you're playing right to left. Okay, let's try a couple more examples. Let's start with G, just because that's an easy one to see. And let's make our intervals, we'll change them around just a little bit. Okay. So what I like to do with my students is this little exercise, and I try and say it in a steady beat, because when you read, you want to develop the habit of reading in as steady a beat as you can. So we're going to start thinking about this as line 1, line 2, 3, 4, 5, or space 1, 2, 3, 4. We do the same thing in the bass clef. Line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or space 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to be starting on line 2 or G, and then we are going to go down a third, up a fourth, down a third. Let me explain how we did that. So we went from a line to the next line note, and we went down. We went from the line note to a space note, but not the next one. We went one higher than that, so that's a fourth. And then we went from a space note to the next space note, and that was a third. So in the next segment, I'm going to show you a little bit more about landmark notes. We will discuss the landmark note down here, which is an F, and then in the following segment, either the next segment or the following segment, we're going to talk about middle C as a landmark note.